Hi folks, I hope you're doing well. Blake here, and I'm back with a new YouTube video. So much earlier in the year, about 9 months ago, I released the first part of a guide on how to get started on Twitch as a musician. So I love being on Twitch. I go live most weeks. It's a really great community. I play live music, we play some interactive games, I do some songwriting, loads and loads of different stuff. And if you fancy checking out a future live stream, then do go and check me out. I'm down in the description below to follow along. But today I wanted to come back with part 2 on my guide of how to get started as a Twitch streamer for music. So during part 1 of the series, which you can check out here, I went through everything about the Twitch community, what using the platform is like, some kind of do's and don'ts, how to personalize your channel, how to get all of the elements in that you need to make it look quite professional. This time round, I'm going to talk about equipment. I'm going to show you my setup, and then I'll talk to you about some of the key elements you might want to consider when you start out streaming on Twitch. However, of course, it's completely up to you. You don't have to get any of the same equipment as me. I'm just going to give a quick guide to some of the things you might want to think about. So I will put links to the things I mention, and I'll talk about some alternatives as well down in the description below. So do go and check them out if you're interested. And finally, after this video, I'll make a part 3 talking about how you use Streamlabs to prepare and actually do your streaming with all the equipment set up. So first of all, we're going to talk about something which is quite obvious but also often an afterthought depending on the streamer. I know I didn't think about it until I'd been streaming for a little while, and that is the background. So here's an example of what I've got in my background. Mine is quite minimal. Obviously it's based on where you live and what you have access to, but some lights and things in the background. You can see I've got my sign up here, which kind of gives me my branding for anyone watching. I've got an on-air sign, guitars and things in the background. The idea is to make it a kind of cozy environment, but also, hopefully if you can, to make it a sort of interactive environment as well. So if you want to really make it interactive, you can get things like like counters. You get a Twitch followers counter in the background, which when anyone follows you, it'll change for you. So they can see that they're changing things in the background of the stream. And things like that are really attractive to viewers because it's quite engaging. So although I don't have that per se, what I have got is on my viewer rewards. So if you go into Twitch, you can edit what your viewers can kind of buy, and the currency is essentially what they get given for interacting with your channel. So watching for a certain amount of time, commenting, all that sort of thing. You get channel points for each Twitch streamer, and you can choose what your audience can do with these channel points. And the really nice thing about this is, again, it makes the Twitch stream very interactive. So for me, for instance, I've got ones which can change the background lights up here so they can flash more frequently or less frequently, that sort of thing. And I've also got another light, which I'll come on to show you, which can change colours and do different colour patterns. So one of the benefits I've got to use the channel points for my channel is that you can have a choice of what the lighting situation wants to be like, whether it's kind of disco-like or whether it's sort of chill like it is at the moment. So have a think about this, but anything you can have in the background which promotes the things you want, or maybe brings up conversation with your chat, even if you have like a whiteboard with, you know, a question on it or that sort of thing, anything like that is useful for both getting people interested and keeping them involved once you are streaming. So as an example, I really like this neon light, this on-air sign I've got behind me. This is from a company called Locomocean, the ocean spelled like the sea, and I'll put a link to it down in the description below. They not only do this, but loads of different neon signs, so you can kind of choose the aesthetic that you want for your streaming background. So I will go through the equipment that I use separately, but here is a quick overview of my current setup that I use for Twitch streaming. So you can see that I've got a couple of monitors, so on this I can both interact with chat, keep an eye on what's happening with my Twitch stream, and use anything else, for instance song lists where I request songs or kind of look at songs that have been requested for playing. So I use a HD webcam, which is really important to get my clear streaming video, because obviously that's key as well to get people interested and involved. And I run my audio through an art mixer where I've plugged in both my voice and my acoustic guitar, and these two things are sort of edited separately before they go into the computer itself. I use this condenser microphone, which I'll go on to talk about, and this is on an arm. It's kind of freely moving around the desk. This is really nice because it means that I can kind of move about and I don't need the exact same setup each time. I can kind of adjust it to whatever's comfortable. And I have a small stand as well. This is for my ribbon microphone. This directly captures what's coming from my guitar and means I don't get too much bleed between my vocal mic and my guitar mic, which I'll come on to show you. So as a streamer, it's quite important that you have headphones. In this way you can hear what you're playing and what kind of is going on in the stream without it feeding back into your microphone. So bear that in mind when you are doing this. It's worth getting a pair of headphones. Mine are very cheap. I can put a link to them, but to be honest, I probably won't because they're just a random cheap pair that I found from Amazon. They work fine. I might upgrade them in the future. Any headphones or earphones you have might be suitable, just choose some that are good for you. And some final notes to say that the computer I use is kind of middle of the range. It's okay, it's not super high spec. Most computers, especially modern day ones, will be able to run Twitch and the streaming software fine, but depending obviously on your spec might control how much you can do in your stream and how smoothly it runs. Another thing to mention is that I have a wired connection for internet, and that's really important because even if you've got a really fast broadband speed, very commonly you'll see changes and it can kind of dip and then come back again, and in those brief moments you can lose a stream. So keeping it wired means that you've got constant good connection to your internet. So the last thing I'll mention is that for Twitch streaming I don't use a DAW. So a lot of the big streamers will reach a point where they take all of their sound that they're making, feed it into a DAW like Ableton, and then they put a plugin which takes it directly from that into Twitch. And the reason they do that is they can add a load of effects. You know, they can add a load of reverb and various other things and make it kind of studio quality sound. So I think mine sounds really good, but it also sounds really natural. It's just what you're hearing from me play and sing. If you're wanting a bit more of a studio edit to your music, as you could be, then I'd definitely recommend checking out some other tutorials on that after this. And one example is on Leon Bratt's channel. He's a really super talented musician and Twitch streamer, and he's done a useful video on that for Ableton, and I'll link that in the description below. So let's start with the camera. Now this is what I use. It's a Logitech C920 HD camera. It's at the time of recording about £50. I mean, there is a Black Friday sale at the moment, but it's about £50 or so in the UK. It does HD up to 1080p. It's quite high quality recording. There are others available and you can go more expensive if you want. You can get 4K recording and similar. The only thing with that, obviously, the higher sort of the quality of the video, the more data is being processed, so you need a more and more powerful computer. In terms of what this is like for me, I'll show you. Here's some footage from a previous stream. I think it does a good job. As long as the recording space is well lit, it does a good job of picking up enough key information to make it hopefully kind of inviting and capturing enough detail for the stream. And I'll put a link to this down below. As I mentioned, if you want to look at higher quality sort of video, you can do. So the main thing I'd say here is that unless it's a really high quality computer webcam, I wouldn't use the one that's present on your computer or laptop because it's likely not sort of HD and really high quality. It's probably a bit less than that. So in terms of adjusting it for your stream, the head can tilt forward and back, and it can clip on to the back of whatever screen you're using as well. But aside from that, it's a useful camera, reasonably affordable, and that's what I'd recommend. So let's talk microphones, and starting off with the vocals, I'm sure every musician watching this virtually has one of these. This is of course a Shure SM58 microphone. Fantastic and robust, but do not use it for streaming unless you want to record something in particular and that's it. So for instance, sometimes you see people doing looping, singing into this, and then they just loop whatever's sang and they don't use it for the rest of the song that they're recording. So the reason is SM58s and similar microphones are what are called dynamic microphones. So if you've ever done a gig or anything like that, you'll know that singing into it can give you a quite good sound. But as soon as you move further and further away, that sound very quickly falls off until you've got very little. In a streaming sense, this isn't ideal because often you'll be moving around, you'll be talking to the chat, you won't want to be right up to your microphone, especially because you want the chat to see you, you want to chat to them, you want to talk to the camera as I am doing now. So therefore you want to be able to freely move around and the microphone still capture everything in your sort of environment. The better thing about SM58s, for example, is because that sound falls off as you get further away from it, you've got less microphone bleeding. So if I've got like 5 different instruments set up and I'm singing into here, if I move further and further away and there's an instrument, you know, back in another corner of a room, you're less likely to pick it up than room microphones, which will pick up everything, and it might kind of all be a bit over the top of each other and sort of lines bleeding into one another. However, if you want to get vocals both for chatting and for singing and everything else, I'd recommend one of these or something like this. This is a condenser microphone. This is a Rode NT1, but there are various others available. Shure have their own version of this as well. I'll put a link to this in Amazon. These can be a bit costly depending on which model you get, but they are fantastic for sound quality. Everything you hear is super clean, but with it being a condenser microphone, it means it picks up everything in the room, whether you're talking quite quietly into it or whether you're singing quite loudly into it. It kind of brings everything to roughly a similar level, which means whether the mic is here or over here, it will still pick me up in a similar way. If you're going to play instruments, which you might be, some people like to plug their instruments directly into the mixer or into their PC. Other people like to go through a microphone. That's what I like to do because I play an acoustic guitar and I think it picks it up really nicely. I've got this one. This is the AKG P170, which I'll show in a video in a second. And this is a really nice ribbon microphone. It's got a very kind of narrow field that it picks up sound from. So I point it roughly between the 12th fret and the sound hole of my acoustic guitar, and it picks up some really nice, clean kind of acoustic tones. And it means that I can change the volume of the guitar and everything. Also means that if I lift the vocal mic higher up and out of the range of where the guitar's directly kind of resonating, it means I can separate the vocals and the guitar quite nicely. So I'm going to show you my mixer in a moment, but if you don't have a mixing desk, you can also get things like microphones which plug directly via USB into your computer, so bear that in mind. What I would say is, obviously, depending on the amount of USB inputs you have, that might limit the amount of microphones that you can use. So if you want to do a lot of things at once, say several instruments or a looper or all that sort of thing, then it's worth potentially getting a mixer which can control the levels of everything and mean that you can plug various things in at once. So this is my mixer. It's an art mixer. It's got jack and XLR inputs, so I can separately control my voice and my guitar as well in terms of the higher, middle and lower frequencies and the volume and panning as well. It doesn't really matter which mixer you use if you want to use one, as long as it has a way to connect from the mixer itself into your computer, usually by USB to this kind of adapter here shown on the back. So as long as you've got something like that, then you can use it for your purposes. They're usually mains powered as well, so do bear that in mind. So if you're looking to have a sort of studio kind of sound but without going through Ableton or a similar DAW, some of these mixers do come with various effects as well, so you can apply that to your voice or whatever before it actually goes into your computer for Twitch streaming. So the last thing I'm going to mention is this is the light that I use. It's on a stand. You can change how high it is or where it's pointed, all that sort of thing. So you can plug it in and run it from the electricity directly, or you can charge it up beforehand, and it's got a little remote as well. And if I turn it on, you'll see that it's quite bright. You can change how bright it is, and there's various different modes as well. So you can change the mode to suit what you want to look for. So it could be flashing, it could be different colours, and that sort of thing. So if you want to make your stream interactive or set a particular colour for it, as I've mentioned, something like this is great, and I will leave a link for it down in the description below. So thanks very much for watching. That was part 2 of my guide of how to start streaming on Twitch as a musician, and specifically this time going over some of the equipment you might need and things to consider. If you enjoyed it and it was helpful, please let me know by liking the video, and please consider coming over to check me out on Twitch. Again, the link you need is down in the description below. And if you have any questions, then please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll try and address some of those in a future video when we finish this whole kind of wrapped up series of a Twitch startup guide for musicians. And finally, if you're into music related stuff on YouTube in general, then I not only do guides and Twitch related stuff, I also do my own music videos, I do guitar lessons, I do reactions, I do vlogs, I do loads and loads of different stuff. So to stay in the loop, please consider clicking the subscribe and notification bell buttons, then you get notified every time I release a new video. So thanks very much, take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.